Same Pastor Cave time, same Pastor Cave channel. Some of you will understand that reference. And welcome back to another episode of Notes from the Pastor Cave. It is a lovely day outside, and so we're getting some air into the cave and some light in the cave. A lot of the bats are flying out, and so anyways, be sure to subscribe to this channel if you're just running across this and you're liking what you see on Notes from the Pastor Cave, then please be sure to subscribe. That helps us just in a myriad of ways. And we are currently in Exodus chapter 14, and I warned you, I think 2 notes ago or so, that we're going to be a little while in chapter 14 because it's just absolutely loaded with material. But I want to pick up in verse 10. And so what's happened and what we've discussed before is that God leads his people through Moses. God leads his people to the shoreline of the Red Sea. And he actually says, stop right here. Okay, so stop and make a camp right here. And as I mentioned last time, anybody with any kind of military knowledge whatsoever could have looked at that situation and said, wow, this is really bad. We are trapped against the sea. And if, they don't know, but if Pharaoh decides to come after us, there's no place for us to go. And so this is a really bad situation. And of course, what we talked about last time, is that God actually does this on purpose, and that he's not afraid to put his people in difficult places so that he can show them how he can rescue them from difficult places. So there they are. They're in this difficult place, and Pharaoh has made the decision to come after them with a portion of his army, probably his household guard, and probably his chariot force, because we know there are chariots involved. And so, picking up in verse 10, when Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes and beheld the Egyptians were marching after them. They're coming up from a height, by the way, because you're heading down towards the shore of the Red Sea. So they'd be coming from a higher place, moving towards a lower place where Israel is encamped. And the Egyptians are marching after them, and they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord, and they said to Moses, "Is it because there were no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt? Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians." In other words, couldn't you have just left us in slavery? Life was better there because, well, at least we were alive, and now we're going to be dead. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. And Moses said to them, "Fear not. Stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work out for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." Okay, loaded, all kinds of stuff in there. Okay, but it begins with this, with verse 11, and when they cry out to the Lord, but they really start to speak out with vitriol against Moses. And, it's very cutting, it's very hurting, it's very sarcastic. Why did you drag us out here? Weren't there enough graves in Egypt? That we have to have, our bones have to just be down here on the shores of the Red Sea, where nobody knows who we were. The archaeologists will have to find us in a couple thousand years to figure out who we are. The point here being and it says that they feared greatly, and that's really where the key to this begins, is that they feared greatly. And I just have here in my notes that pressure and fear brings on a crumpling of faith. Pressure and fear brings on a crumpling of faith. And, maybe this is obvious, maybe it sounds silly, but it is so easy to have faith when everything is going well. I am certain that these same people that cried out against Moses in this pressure moment and lost their heads and lost all faith, I am positive that they were, rejoicing and dancing when they left Egypt and crossed the border, and wow, we're going to be free and everything is going to be great. And now all of a sudden they're in a pressure moment, and they completely lose all faith in what God can do and in what God has said He will do. And this is really important for us because we want to see we naturally want to see faith like this, and that is actually the kind of faith that God wants to produce in us. Is this very much across the board faith, whether things are going poorly or things are going great, that our faith would always be the same, like this straight line across here. But we know that's not true for most of us, most of the time, and it's real easy to ride the rails when everything is going great. But all of a sudden, in this pressure moment, they lose faith, and we have to watch out for that too. And we have to, and the first part of watching out for that is just not being surprised by it. When some terrible or shocking moment comes in our lives, and all of a sudden we're having doubts, we need to be able to look at ourselves and look at the situation and say, "Hey, I'm having doubts here. Oh yeah, well this is a pretty bad situation," and to be able to kind of counterbalance that out. And to bring some understanding, some kind of, outside the forest, looking into the trees kind of perspective, and to kind of understand what's going on. And that's one of the factors that will help us to hang on to faith and not let our faith crumble or crumple during those times. And then the remedy to that is in verse 13 that Moses says, "Fear not, stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord, which He will work in you today." Okay, and what I want to bring out there is that this standing firm, this saying, "Okay, I'm not going to fear, and I'm going to stand firm. I'm not going to let my head run everywhere." Okay. That's a prerequisite. I knew I was going to get that wrong. That's a prerequisite to a miracle, okay, and we say, well, what is the atmosphere that I can bring about in my life that God can work His supernatural abundance through me? Because He's not just a supernatural God, but He wants to bring the supernatural into our lives. That's the role of miracles. And, He doesn't just want to talk about it. He actually wants to do it. And we say, well, how can I be ready for that? How can I be, because there are long stretches of time in our lives that, there's not exactly, thunderbolts flying and all kinds of exciting, miraculous things going on. We're just kind of living life and we're just holding steady. So how can I create an atmosphere in my life where when God is ready to do something, I will be ready to receive it, that I'll be ready for it. And this is the prescription right here from Moses. Number 1, fear not. And then number 2, stand firm and see, right? So you're fearing not, you're standing firm, and then you're seeing the salvation of God. Notice anything there? Has nothing to do with you, really. It has everything to do with God. You just need to put yourself in an atmosphere of receiving from God when the time comes. As a matter of fact, in verse 14, as I mentioned before, the Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. Okay, so God is not quite this guttural, but in a way, He's saying, if you would just shut up for a couple of minutes, I could get something. I could get something done here. You just need to be silent. Instead of running around like a chicken with your head cut off, and you're yelling at Joshua and you're yelling at Moses and you're yelling at Aaron and you're saying all kinds of all the poison that's coming out of your mouth and everything. Just be quiet. And understanding here that just looking at my time here a little bit, understanding here that Pharaoh wants to do more than just kill them. I mean, that's obviously what he wants to do. But his whole approach is that he wants to spread terror amongst them first. And this is really where one of these things we need to remember, okay? Because as we've said from the beginning, Pharaoh serves as a type of Satan. He serves as a type of the evil one, okay? So he's going to make a big show. He could have found a way to snuck up on him. I mean, they could have split his forces and come down from the north and come up the shoreline from the south and all those things. But he doesn't do that because he wants to descend from the hills upon the Israelites to completely and utterly terrify them before he kills them. And that is the ultimate goal of Satan in your life, is that he wants to kill you. He wants to get rid of you. But he first wants to terrify you. And because if he can terrify you, he can make the whole world see that you are terrified. And who is this God character? He can't even keep his people calm. He can't even keep them from being terrified. And so therefore, if God is creating a situation where he wants to be glorified, Satan wants to create a situation where he takes away that glorification, or he does the opposite of that. So he can prove that God is a worthless God if he can send his people into terror and have them running all over the place and have them accusing each other and yelling at each other at a terrible time. So keep all of that in mind, that this idea of just standing firm and just saying, I'm not going to be afraid, is really the first step against that type of terror. And that puts us in the atmosphere in which God can really begin to work and really begin to do things, even in a supernatural way in our lives, to work about his accomplishments, to work about his works, that he might be glorified, not us. Not that people would look at us and say, "Oh, wow, what a great man! He's got so much faith." Not that, but that God would be glorified. So, vita brevis gloria aeterna. Life is short, glory is eternal. Have a wonderful day.